You are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Kyle Bryant.
And I'm Sean Bumpstark. Together, we're navigating life with disability.
Sean and I were both diagnosed with a rare, debilitating, life-shortening disease that has affected our physical abilities and causes us to live with urgency. We are constantly looking for the next challenge, not only in spite of our disease, but because of it.
We are two dudes who constantly challenge our own abilities, and we invite you to do the same.
All right. Welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast, episode 14. Today we are going to talk about our experience in Race Across America, and we have an awesome interview with my dad, actually, who was our crew chief. But first, I want to tell you a story, Sean. By the way, hey, Sean, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. Always glad to be in front of the microphone with you.
Yeah, man. All right, so I want to get this story out of the way so we can jump into the RAAM episode, but
please do.
So this week, my friend was having the door of her apartment repainted. Like, they sent her an email and said, all the people in her building, hey, we're repainting your doors, so get your animals out, because the door will be open during the day a little bit.
Sure.
So she brings her cat over to my house for the day, so it doesn't run away when the door's open in her apartment.
Sure.
And so she comes over in the morning and brings the cat, sets up the litter box, gets it water, all this stuff, and then she takes off because she has a doctor appointment. And so it's just me and the cat in the apartment. And I'm getting ready for work, and I'm all ready, but there's a light on in the kitchen. And the cat is like sitting sort of in the front of the kitchen, like entrance to the kitchen. So I barely get by it. Like, I definitely don't. I'm like brushing its fur a little bit, and it's definitely not excited about it. And so I get in the kitchen, it lets me by, and turn off the light, and I'm like moving out of the kitchen, and it starts growling at me, and like this low toned growl. And then I keep moving, and it opens its mouth and hisses at me, and it like kind of lunges a little bit, like kind of like saying, like, if you get any closer to me, I am going to kill you.
Oh,
and so here I am alone with this cat. I'm in the kitchen. It won't let me out of the kitchen. I'm like late to work, and I can't get out of the kitchen, so I pull back a little bit because I don't want to die, and I like gather myself, and then I'm like, what the heck? What
am I gonna do?
This cat is keeping me hostage. Like, this is not something that should prevent me from like continuing on my day. So I tried again, and again, I'm like, okay, I don't think this is gonna work, because she's hissing, she's growling, and she's not excited. And so I go back into the kitchen, and I'm sitting there on my phone answering emails, waiting for this cat. Oh, but my last-ditch effort was I was looking for like a string or something to like distract it.
Okay.
But I didn't have any string. My shoelaces, I couldn't take a shoelace off, whatever. So there was some popcorn in the kitchen.
Oh, jeez.
I grabbed a handful of popcorn and I was like throwing it around the apartment to try and get her to chase it so I could get out, but she was not having it.
Wow.
So finally, after like 15 minutes of like trying and like sitting around in the kitchen being trapped, there's a bird outside the window. Like my back door, there's glass and all the way down, almost all the way to the floor in the back window. Back door. So a bird is like flying around outside and she gets struck and like runs over the window. And enough so I can make my break for it. So
oh my gosh.
And like I show up to work and I'm like, hey, sorry I'm late. I was trapped by a cat in the kitchen.
A cat held me hostage.
So that's how I started my week. Yeah.
That's amazing. Are you gonna watch that cat again?
I definitely would. I mean,
did that cat ever come around and like later that night at home? Was everything okay, or the cat just went away?
So that night I come home and it hisses at me again and like growls. I'm like, all right, I'm not having this. So I go into my room and I close the door because my friend's gonna come over and pick it up. And I close the door and like whatever, like read a book or like do some push-ups or whatever it was. And then she comes over and finally I'm like, all right, I can come out of the room. And I come out of the room and we can't find the cat. It's nowhere to be found. It like disappeared. We looked around the apartment for like 15 minutes, didn't find the cat. Finally, I look under the table. It's sitting on the kitchen chair, which is pushed under the table, so we could not see. It was like the best hiding place in the whole apartment because it didn't want to, get put in its little travel box and
didn't want to leave you.
So
it was enjoying being in charge and keeping you trapped,
taking over the domain. Yeah,
that's funny.
So. Yeah, so
that's great. That makes my day.
I'm glad you enjoy that. Yeah.
I wish. Did you have your phone? And did you take pictures? Why didn't you get this on camera?
Oh, I have it on video.
Okay.
Because I texted my friend and I was like, "Hey, your cat is keeping me hostage." And I didn't get a hiss on video, but I definitely got like a good growl.
That death stare. Don't you dare come near me. That's awesome. Maybe that'll be a good picture to go along with the post.
Yeah. I'll see if I can post that to the website.
That's funny. Well, thanks for sharing. A quick update on my end. I don't think we talked about it last time. I can't remember now. It's been an episode or two, but I finally got hot water again.
Oh, yeah.
So
good
I'm
for
happy,
you, man.
I'm happy now.
Way to go! Did it take any Did you have to have a stern talk with the landlord?
Nope, not this time. They it wasn't too long after our last conversation. A couple more days, maybe.
Okay.
So
good.
We're good to go. I'm in business.
That's awesome. It makes me feel good that you have warm water, man. You know.
Thank you.
So hey, let's jump into this conversation about Race Across America. It was definitely a defining trip, journey in my life, and I know it was for you too.
For sure.
So it's always fun to talk about it because there's so many stories and so much stuff happened. And it was for such an amazing cause. It was the thing that we care about the most, right?
Absolutely.
So, anyway, just for all the listeners who don't know what Race Across America is, it's a 3,000-mile bike race. It's called the world's toughest bike race. It goes literally from ocean to ocean, from Oceanside, California to City Dock in Annapolis, Maryland, 3,005 miles. all the way across the country, and the clock never stops. So a lot of people know about Tour de France, right? And it's a stage race. So and don't get me wrong, those guys are crazy. Like, none of us could even think about trying to compete at that level. But for comparison's sake, Tour de France is a stage race. Those guys race, I don't know, 100 miles or whatever a day. Yep. And then they take a break every single day and, like, go into their nice RV and, like, get a massage, eat some gourmet food from a chef, all that stuff.
Right.
And race across America.
Make millions while they do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And race across America, the clock never stops. So once the clock starts at the starting line in Oceanside, it does not stop until you reach the finish line in Annapolis, Maryland. And so it's super intense, and you have to finish in less than 9 days. That's 219 hours. And so you have to race at 24 hours a day at an average speed of no less than I think it's 14 miles per hour. And so that's a snapshot of what RAAM is. And so we had the opportunity recently to have a conversation with my dad, who was our crew chief. So on Race Across America, there's 4 riders, or on our team, there was 4 riders. There's teams of 2, 4, and 8, and then there's also solo riders, which is just completely gnarly and crazy. But anyway, we had a 13-person crew. And that took care of everything for us, and you'll hear it a little more description in the interview. But my dad was the crew chief, and so he was kind of responsible for making sure everything got done, and the crew was all doing their jobs, and everybody was, and kind of the whole team was working well, and it absolutely did. And I think everyone on the team played a part. But anyway, my dad was the crew chief. We had a conversation with him to kind of get his perspective on stuff. So that's what we want to feature today.
So that's an incredible description of RAAM, basically a pretty good overview of what we experienced not too long ago. So I guess without further ado, Kyle, let's jump right into the conversation with Mike Bryant, your father, and kind of get his 2 cents on RAAM, and of course his perspective as being somebody that helped us get to the finish or the starting line, then of course helped us get all the way across country with everybody involved. So here we go.
Welcome, Mike Bryant.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Mike, it's always good to hear your voice. I feel like you have the perfect radio voice.
Really?
Sometimes
when I hear myself, when I hear myself, I don't like it.
Oh, well, hopefully we can help change that. I think you are already collecting fans just off the few sentences you've already thrown out there. Mike, thanks for calling in today. Kyle, I don't know if you have specific questions, but since you mentioned crew chief Bryant over here as the guy for RAAM, I also wanted to point out, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Mike has actually been with you, Kyle, for far too long. Almost 35 years now this 35. Week. So, not only
he might agree with that sentiment.
Yep.
No comment. So, My first experience with your dad or with you, Mike, was getting ready for our Vegas trip, which was 2 years before RAAM, Race Across America. And,
Right.
seeing and reading about you and Kyle riding to Tennessee, and then a year later we all went to Vegas, and then a year later you guys did Portland. And just over the years, there's always been some major stuff. I'm curious,
Yep.
Before RAAM came up, how were you, where was your head in all of this?
Well, I think, at first I was kind of a reluctant participant. I've always, I worked every day for the last 30 years, and my job was always, kind of front and center. And so anytime I took away, I was concerned about it. And so all of these events, kind of took time away from my work. And, it was silly of me to think that way, but that's just the way I've always thought. And so, looking back, it was really, a really great thing to kind of take me out of that rut and to experience all these things that Kyle drugged me into. So,
Sure. So, Mike, you got to a place where you said, yeah, okay, I'm doing it, apparently. I did 2 months to get to Tennessee, and now we're going to do 2 weeks to get to Vegas, and then a week or whatever Seattle and Portland were. And then, of course, the RAAM conversation comes up, and now you're talking, okay, the race itself is maybe only 9 days, but we've got a lot of work to get to the starting line.
I think that was the scariest of all. We all went to that seminar that RAAM puts on, and I was trying to remember when that was. It was like in November or something, I think, of that year.
I feel like it was. Yeah.
Was it before that?
I think it was January. I think it was exactly 6 months. I could be wrong.
Okay.
And we didn't even have a crew at all. We were like brainstorming that night, like, who can come with us?
Who might want to do this?
Yeah, so we all went to a restaurant after the seminar, right? And kind of sat around and looked at each other and went, "Oh my God," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that was when everyone else turned and said, "You're the crew chief," because that was the first thing that they said to do at the seminar was get a crew chief. And I was kind of going, "You kidding me?"
Well, at that point too, you were the only member of the crew. I mean,
right?
Diane was with you, your wife.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was like, okay, well, we need a crew, and so far we have Mr. and Mrs. Bryant.
Yeah, we were silly enough to go to the seminar with you guys.
Well, and I think one of the scary things about that, well, at least for me, was that we had already said we're going to do this. It was on record, whatever, just a blog post. But, I mean, I feel like everything after that, after RAAM, depends on the completion of it. Just for our reputations or whatever, or, moving forward, people actually thinking that we might be able to get this done. And so I feel like the scary thing was we already committed to it. And then we're like, how are we even going to make this happen?
Yeah, that was, I think the seminar was very well done because it made you really think that this is kind of an overwhelming task, especially given that we were going to try to get it done in 6 months, all of these things.
Mike, I'm curious, talking about all these adventures that you've been on with Kyle, and I've had the pleasure of joining you guys for a few of them. Why do you do it? I'm sure it's one thing. I know it's a leading question, but Obviously Kyle's your son, and you want to do whatever you can to be a part and to help. But are you are you more motivated by wanting to be a support system and help Kyle, or maybe more motivated by, if my son can do it, I can do it, and I want to share that experience with him?
No, I think it's definitely more, being a support system and, wanting to contribute to make it happen, to make it whatever he thinks he's going to be doing next. I want to be along for the ride and try to help out and make it happen. And so I think that's really the motivation. And once after we, the first ride when we rode from San Diego to Tennessee, I think after we did that, it kind of opened my eyes to make me realize that, we can do something big, and it made some of the other things that we did a little more approachable as we're, as we were into the planning stages of it.
So then, if your motivation is to be a support system, or to be a part of that support structure, it probably wouldn't offend you at all if Kyle quit leading these adventures.
No, not at all. I wouldn't feel at all bad if that occurred.
We all know that's not going to happen.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
I think there's also another motivating factor, which, Dad, maybe you can talk a little bit about. I feel like at the beginning it was all about, okay, fine, yeah, it was all about us. Like, how are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do with our lives? Like, is this going to drag us into nothingness, or, are we going to make something of it? And I feel like that's what it was at the beginning. But then over time, we found out that it was a part of something so much bigger as far as the FA community, and really being a part of a movement to help treat and cure and provide hope to so many people. How much, or can you just talk about how that aspect kind of plays into the whole picture and how that motivates you?
Yeah, I think that is, a really exciting part of that. Again, going back to the first ride, we were in it just basically just the three of us at that point. But as we moved across the country and kind of, momentum started taking effect and people started hearing about it, and we met with people, we met with researchers. It was really exciting, and that was, something that kind of kept us going. I know it kept me going anyway, knowing that other people were now counting on us. And then when you get to the RAAM ride, I think when you think about the crew that we had, it was all people from the FA community, basically, other than maybe a couple that quickly became part of the community. But I think that's what made that so special, was to have all those people with us, and knowing that that we were reaching so many other people that were following this ride across country, and getting excited about what we were doing. And I always think about all of my friends now that ride bicycles now, because that's what we decided to do, was ride a bicycle. And I think it, even able-bodied people, it has motivated a lot of people just to get out and get on a bicycle and do a 50-mile ride or whatever, where they never thought about that before. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I agree. So in RAAM, so we talked about how you became crew chief, sort of
yeah,
by default. Do you have a specific story that is your favorite about how insanely awkward and difficult a situation that you were put in on the race, And I don't know, just a difficult situation. I know there were many, but does one stand out in your mind?
Well, what I think what I think about first is, I don't know, we must have been probably 5 or 6 days in or something, and everybody was getting sleep deprived, and I know that I certainly was. And we had these schedules, where we had everybody had to have a shift, and then we had to make sure people were getting enough sleep. And so there's people out on the road, there's people in the RV. The riders were pretty well set. I mean, you guys knew. I mean, every 4 hours you were out on the road. But the crew, we were kind of rotating around, and different people were doing different things. And so I was supposed to be in charge of putting all that together. And it got to where finally it was getting so screwed up that Blake sat me down and said, "I've got to take this over for you. It's not working." And then he made me lay down and go to sleep. And then he did the schedule, and I think I actually slept for like 6 hours, which was a long time for that trip.
Yeah. And
so it just got to where I was totally overwhelmed with everything that was going on, and I my mind was fried. I had like a mental breakdown or something. I mean, I'd never felt like that before, and Blake kind of rescued me. So that's kind of what I always think back on.
Nice. So, I guess I should have asked this question before that one, but can you sort of describe the responsibilities of a crew member?
Yeah, so there were, I think, what were there? I think 11 crew members.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
I think it was 13, but same
13?
thing.
13? Okay,
yeah.
well, yeah, whatever the number is. So there's a number of jobs. There's, of course, feeding everyone, including the riders, and that, the main focus was keeping the riders going, and so keeping the food for them and making sure that they are eating and being hydrated and everything else. And so there's people that do that. There has to be somebody driving the RV at all times, and then a navigator for the RV. And then there's 2 cars out on the road following the riders at all times. And so those cars, the vans, are running 24 hours a day, and there has to be 2 crew members in each of those vans at all times. And so those are the basic responsibilities of the crew people. And some people preferred to drive, some wanted to navigate, some absolutely did not want to navigate. So there was, and then I think there were only 3 or 4 of us that really felt comfortable driving the RV. So there was, so you had to kind of factor that in as far as rotating people around. So those were the basic jobs, and the critical part of everything was trying to make sure that everybody got some rest at some point or another, because of course everybody wants to help out and be there at all times. But just like when Blake sat me down, everybody has to sit down at some point and take a rest.
The riders definitely had a physically challenging ordeal, but I feel like the crew just had super stressful and like sleep deprived because the crew had to follow the exact route. I think that navigating was the most stressful thing probably, and that's why people didn't want to do it, because if we got off track, it would lose us a bunch of time, and
plus Sean might get mad at you, and then what would we do?
Yep.
Yeah.
It might jeopardize the race and our friendship.
It's just like any ride, right? Doing the ride, it's physically challenging, but that's the fun part. It's the crew part that is that is tough. And it's certainly the case with RAAM. And that, I think the one speech I gave as a crew chief basically was that the total focus, it doesn't matter what's going on, but the total focus is to make sure that the riders are taken care of. And I think that everybody followed that pretty well. And that was, hopefully you guys didn't see all of the stress behind the scenes, because we were just trying to take care of you. And that was the whole goal of the whole team. So
no doubt that was all we got. I've heard stories ever since RAAM, and every time we get to see a glimpse of the attack scene in the film that really chronicles the journey, I've heard stories from crew members of this one ordeal or that one issue, and I'm like, wow, I never heard about that, never saw it. So kudos to you and the team for sure. Everybody did a fabulous job of keeping the racers racing. So I didn't even know you guys were not sleeping. I never thought about it, actually.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's good. You shouldn't have been thinking about it.
I agree with that. I definitely noticed it at the time, but I knew that the attitude from every crew member, because of what you said, I knew their attitude was like, you know what, just focus on what you're doing and we'll take care of this. And so I knew no matter what I saw, that I just needed to focus on, getting myself enough rest or food or whatever it was, to take care of myself, and the crew would take care of everything else.
Well, and I think maybe that was kind of a unique part of our team, was that it wasn't just a bunch of people thrown together that said, hey, we would like to try to crew RAAM. It was all people that had a connection to the FA community. And I think that's what made that team work as well as it did. I mean, there was no fighting or bickering or anything. I mean, it was stressful, but everybody pretty much just stuck to the goal, and there were really no issues that, quite frankly, I heard about on other teams as we were moving across the country. I mean, there was teams that quit in the middle of the race. Because they had issues with each other, and there was never anything like that.
I think you're totally hitting the nail on the head, Mike. When you have a team and everybody's invested, whether it's for the same reason or a similar reason, when everybody's invested and has the target in mind of this is what we're doing and where we're going, there's, like Kyle said from the very beginning, there's no way we're not going to finish. No matter what we're up against, we all, from 6 months prior, the goal was to finish, and nothing was going to keep us from doing that. And the team certainly complemented that train of thought.
Yeah, and I think that's what you get. It's a theme throughout all of our events to date. Everybody is focused on the cause, on the FA community, and no one's in it for themselves. Nobody has an ego, or if they do, it's only for a few seconds, and then we all realize exactly what we're there for. And I think that's what happens anytime you have a team and you're focused on something a lot bigger than each individual person. That's just kind of what happens, and something that I really enjoy doing the events that we do.
Mike, real quick, before we lose you or move on, tell me, who knows when this would be available for people to listen, or maybe who's being able to screen the documentary or not. Tell me real quick one of your favorite memories from being a part of RAAM, whether it's in the film or something aside from the film. If you think back to that journey, what is something that sticks out to you as something you're either really proud about or you think is just a great memory for you?
Well, I always go back to the finish line. I just thought that was just really amazing, and just the relief of being there, and then having all those people, and I don't know, it just kind of the whole 8 days just kind of floods through your head as you think about everything you went through, and you actually accomplished what you set out to do, and I think about that finish an awful lot. I thought that was just really cool, and it was such an emotional release at that point that I just couldn't believe it.
Sure. I think an emotional release in 100 different ways, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Mike Bryant, my father, thank you for sharing your time with us tonight and giving us a little insight into the mind of a crew chief for RAAM.
Not just RAAM, but for RAAM with a couple disabled dudes on the team.
Yeah. That's it. So,
all right. Hey, I enjoyed it.
Good.
Right.
Well, we're talking about another one, so we'll call you again soon.
All right.
Yeah. So
yeah, you can call me all you want.
So is that a commitment to a second crew chief of RAAM for our team?
No, absolutely not. I'll be a low paid consultant to the new crew chief.
That's fair.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, Dad.
Spike.
All right.
Kyle, I always love talking to your dad. I think, well, like I said, I think he's got a great radio voice, and he's such a cool guy. So I'm really thankful that he was able to get on the phone with us. One thing that we wanted to just wrap up with is the thought of really the community aspect of our RAAM experience. And as most people know, Kyle, with our race, our trek across country documentary film was produced. So we had a film crew the whole time, a couple of friends, or they've become friends over the years, that documented the race and have since produced a film called The Ataxian. And we'll get in a little more of that with the next episode. We're going to feature our teammates, Mike and John. But anyway, one thing we talk about with this episode, and even that's portrayed in the film, is just how much community really is the heartbeat of the film itself. It revolves around our race, but really it takes a look at other families and other people involved in the cause. And what we believe it is, folks, is an intimate look at life with FA because of all the different people involved and all the people that share how FA affects them and what it's the effect it's having on their life and on their family. So one thing that's really sticking out to me, or one thing that has stuck out to me, is how many different people were involved and how it really took a ton of people in the community to make it happen, and really to be a part of what's helped build and further strengthen the community of FAers itself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing that I remember about RAAM is, it truly was the comments and the meetings that we had with people along the road and the comments on the blog and stuff like that truly drove us. I mean, the whole purpose was to raise awareness and support the community. And the community absolutely supported us, and so it was an effort by many more people than just us who were actually physically on the race. And I just thought that was an amazing experience to realize how much went into it and how much people can contribute without physically being there.
Agreed. You're absolutely right. And I think you even mentioned it in the film. For those folks who haven't got to see it, side note, you'll get to soon. Like Kyle said last time, he promises. But one comment you made in the film is that it's a circular effect. We push, somebody else pushes, somebody else gives, somebody else does something, it pushes us further. And before you know it, everybody's involved in making some incredible movement in the fight against FA.
Yep, that's how it works. Awesome, love that. Good stuff.
Well, thanks for tuning in again, folks, to episode 14. Stay tuned next time, episode 15. It's going to feature a conversation with two other team members, Mike and John. So the four of us will get on the line together and talk a little more about our RAAM experience. Thanks for being here today.
We'll see you next time.
Perfect. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. To find this episode and links to some of the stuff we talked about today, find us online at twodisableddudes.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We'd like to hear from you and feature your feedback and questions on future podcasts. Be sure to visit us at twodisableddudes.com to find our contact info and connect on social media.
Special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins, who also composed the music.
We'll share a new podcast every other week. We hope you'll listen and share it with a friend. Until next time, keep living with urgency.